Do you know what separates those who succeed from those who only dream about success? It's not luck. It's not even talent. It's something much smaller, something that hides in plain sight. It's 1%, just 1%. One small shift in your daily habits, your thinking, your energy, can transform the entire direction of your life. You see, when we talk about growth, people imagine massive change. They think they must reinvent everything overnight, tear down their old life, and start new. But the truth is, great transformation begins with a single, small, consistent improvement. 1%. That's all you need. Think about this. If you improve yourself by 1% every single day, after 1 year, you're not 365% better. You're 3,800% better. Because that 1% compounds. Every small action builds on the last. Like layers of strength, layers of discipline, layers of awareness. But here's the problem. Most people don't believe in small progress. They believe only in dramatic success. They think, if I can't change everything right now, that's where they lose. Because success doesn't happen in the explosion, it happens in the quiet moments of persistence. It happens in the mornings when no one's watching. It happens when you choose to move one step forward instead of standing still. When I trained in the Shaolin Temple, every day was repetition. We practiced the same movements thousands of times. Kicks, punches, stances, balance day after day after day. At first, you feel nothing. You feel you're wasting your time. But then one day, you realize something. The body has changed. The mind has changed. What used to be hard has become effortless. That's the power of 1%. You won't feel it immediately, but time will reveal it. The invisible becomes visible only when you stay consistent long enough. People often say, I don't have time. I don't have motivation. I don't see results. I tell them, you don't need to see results to keep going. You need to trust the process. You need to understand that small progress is still progress. A single drop of water, falling again and again, can carve stone. That's not magic. That's persistence. That's what life is teaching you. That slow is not weak. Slow is strong. Because slow builds roots. You see, most of us live in a world of comparison. We compare our beginnings to someone else's middle. We see the success, the fame, the body, the wealth, and we say, I could never get there. But what we don't see is the 1%. Those people gave every single day. The mornings they woke up when they didn't want to. The evenings they practiced when others rested. The choices they made when no one was watching. Success leaves footprints, but they are made one step at a time. I want you to think right now, what's one small thing you can do today that moves you 1% closer to who you want to be? Maybe it's reading one page of a book. Maybe it's choosing not to argue. Maybe it's walking for 10 minutes. Maybe it's saying, I can, instead of, I can't. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be consistent. Because 1% a day means you are 100% responsible for your life. You control your direction, your energy, your focus. We live in a generation addicted to instant gratification. Everyone wants fast success, fast money, fast results. But nothing that grows fast lasts long. A tree that grows too quickly without deep roots will fall in the first storm. The same goes for your goals, your discipline, your peace. If you want something that lasts, you must be willing to grow slowly, patiently, intentionally. 1% a day is not slow progress. It is real progress. You don't need to change the world in one day. You need to change one habit. You need to build one small victory at a time. Because success is not built on motivation. It's built on momentum. When you make one small change, your brain starts to believe in yourself again. You begin to feel capable, empowered. And then that energy spreads. It moves from your thoughts into your actions, from your actions into your environment. That's how transformation begins silently, invisibly, one step at a time. The problem is not that people dream too big. The problem is that they refuse to start small. They want to jump to the mountaintop without climbing the steps. But the truth is, every master was once a beginner. Every monk, every warrior, every teacher began with small steps. You are no different. The only thing separating you from mastery is your willingness to begin again and again without giving up. Let me tell you something powerful. The difference between failure and success is often not in skill, but in endurance. Can you stay 1% better today than you were yesterday? Can you keep showing up when it's boring, when it's uncomfortable, when no one claps for you? That's where real growth happens. Not in motivation, but in discipline. When you move 1% forward, it's almost invisible. But when you stop, it's also invisible until months later, when you realize how far you've drifted. That's why I tell my students, never stop moving. Even when you feel tired, crawl if you must. But move. Even the smallest motion keeps the energy alive. Because energy grows where attention flows. Many people want to change their lives, but they underestimate time. Time is your ally if you respect it. If you feed time with consistent effort, it multiplies your growth. But if you waste time waiting for perfect conditions, you'll always be behind. 1% daily means you're planting seeds. And time will turn those seeds into forests, but only if you keep watering them. In martial arts, we don't focus on winning fights. We focus on refining the self. Because the external victory is the reflection of the internal mastery. You cannot control the outside world, but you can control your internal progress 1% at a time. Maybe today your progress is controlling your anger. Maybe tomorrow it's practicing patience. Maybe the next day it's gratitude. These invisible 1% shifts create a visible transformation in your energy, your presence, your life. I want you to imagine this. Every time you improve by 1%, you're telling your future self, I am building something meaningful. And your future self is waiting strong, peaceful, confident for you to arrive. But you cannot meet that version of yourself if you keep starting and stopping. You meet them only through consistency. The mind will always try to convince you that small progress is not enough. It will say, why bother? It will say, this is too slow. But your mind is afraid of discomfort. It prefers the familiar, even when the familiar keeps you weak. To grow 1% means to step outside your comfort zone every single day. That's where you reclaim power. That's where transformation becomes permanent. Remember, perfection is not the goal, progress is. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be growing. Every conscious breath, every act of discipline builds your. You may not see the results immediately, but one day you'll look back and realize the small moments were never small. They were the foundation of everything. So start now. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for someone to believe in you. Believe in the 1%, because when you give 1% every single day, you're already doing more than 99% of people who do nothing. That's the secret. That's how you build an extraordinary life, not through big leaps, but through small, consistent steps in the same direction. 1% is not small. 1% is sacred. You're still moving, still growing, still choosing to rise. And one day, that 1% will be the reason you became unstoppable. Most people underestimate the power of small beginnings. They think change has to be loud, noticeable, dramatic. But the truth is, real change begins in silence. It begins in that quiet decision you make with yourself that no one else sees. No one else celebrates. But you feel it inside. That whisper in your mind that says, I will try again today. That's the moment everything begins to shift. Because 1% improvement starts not with action, but with intention. When you set the intention to be 1% better, you already begin to move energy in a new direction. I remember many students coming to the temple, full of excitement and ego. They would say, Master, I want to become strong. I want to master the body and mind. And I would smile, because the desire is good, but the expectation is often wrong. They want to see transformation in a week, in a month. But mastery doesn't reveal itself to those who rush. It reveals itself to those who are patient enough to walk the long road with humility. I would tell them, don't look for improvement in days. Look for it in decades. But if you want to make the path possible, focus only on one thing, the next 1%. You see, when you commit to improving 1% every day, you give yourself permission to grow without pressure. You take your focus away from the destination and put it on the process. Because when your attention lives in the process, your actions become powerful. Your presence becomes deep. That's what we forget. Life isn't lived in big moments. It's lived in the small, ordinary, repeated moments that shape your character. When you wake up early, that's 1%. When you breathe consciously, 1%. When you speak kindly, 1%. When you choose discipline instead of distraction, 1%. None of these things seem extraordinary, but combined, they build extraordinary people. Because success is not the result of one big decision. It's the sum of thousands of small ones. So many people give up on their journey because they expect to feel powerful right away. They expect motivation to stay with them forever. But motivation is like a flame. If you don't protect it with consistency, it will fade. That's why I teach my students that motivation doesn't create consistency. Consistency creates motivation. When you do something small every day, your confidence grows. You begin to trust yourself. And when trust grows, energy grows. Suddenly, you start to see yourself differently, not as someone trying, but as someone becoming. Every great mountain is climbed one step at a time. No one jumps to the top. You take one step, you rest, you breathe, and you take another. Some days you climb faster, some days slower. But if you don't stop, you will reach the top. Life. The problem is not that the mountain is too high, it's that people stop climbing. They stop because they can't see progress. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. The bamboo plant grows underground for years before you see it rise. But it is growing strong, deep roots, preparing for the moment it breaks through the soil. Your growth is the same. It's invisible before it becomes visible. You see, we live in a world that celebrates outcomes, not effort. People only clap when you win, when you succeed, when you show results. But they don't see the days of doubt, the nights of pain, the moments when you wanted to give up. But those moments are what make you. The 1% improvement is not about being perfect. It's about refusing to quit. It's about showing up even when you don't feel ready. Because readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. So I ask you today, where in your life are you giving up too early? Expecting big results without respecting the small steps. Every great story begins with small movements, small decisions, small wins. That's the hidden power of the 1% mindset. It teaches you that your future is not determined by one moment of brilliance, but by daily discipline. You don't need to be extreme. You just need to be consistent. Think about it like this. If you improve your relationships by 1% each day, by listening a little more, by being a little kinder, imagine the connection you'll build in a year. If you improve your health by 1% by sleeping better, eating better, moving more, imagine how strong you'll feel in a year. If you improve your mindset by 1% by replacing one negative thought with one positive, imagine the peace you'll have in a year. The 1% rule doesn't just change your habits, it changes your destiny. But here's the truth. The 1% path is not easy. But not easy. Because small actions require big patience. And patience is the rarest strength today. We want to skip the process and go straight to the prize. But if you skip the process, you lose the lesson. The process is where the transformation happens. Every time you practice patience, you're building mental strength. Every time you resist giving up, you're sharpening your spirit. Every time you show up for yourself, even when you don't feel like it, you're proving to your mind that you are in control. Not your emotions, not your circumstances, not your past. You, the 1% mindset, is about reclaiming control over your life. It's about saying, I don't need to have everything figured out. I just need to move 1% forward. That is power. Because when you move, you create energy. And when you create energy, you attract possibility. Many people wait for things to happen before they take action. But the masters know you take action first, and then life responds. Movement creates momentum. When I was younger, training at dawn, my legs shaking, my body exhausted, I often questioned myself, why am I doing this? But the answer was always the same, because one day I will need the strength I am building today. And that's how life works. You may not see the purpose of your small efforts right now, but one day, you'll need the strength, the resilience, the calm, the confidence you built in those moments. You are always preparing for something greater, even if you can't see it yet. The 1% rule also teaches humility. It reminds you that greatness is not instant, that mastery is earned, not claimed. When you grow slowly, you appreciate deeply. You stop taking progress for granted. You stop chasing shortcuts and start honoring the journey, because you realize that every second, every repetition, every failure is sacred. You begin to understand that growth is not about becoming better than others, it's about becoming better than who you were yesterday. And that's the ultimate purpose of the 1% evolution. Not perfection, not comparison, but evolution. Every day, you get to write a new sentence in your story. Because life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The goal is not speed, it's endurance. The goal is not perfection, it's persistence. When you live by this mindset, something powerful happens. You stop feeling overwhelmed by how far you have to go, and you start feeling grateful for how far you've come. Gratitude becomes your anchor, and from gratitude, discipline grows. From discipline, strength grows. From strength, peace grows. This is the quiet chain reaction of 1% progress. Invisible at first, unstoppable over time. So when you wake up tomorrow, don't look for a big miracle. Look for one small win. Maybe it's choosing patience when someone tests you. Maybe it's staying focused when your mind wants distraction. Maybe it's believing in yourself just 1% more. These moments, they build a foundation stronger than any sudden burst of motivation, because motivation fades, but identity stays. When you live as someone who improves 1% every day, it becomes your identity. You no longer rely on external validation. You no longer wait for the perfect mood. You become the kind of person who moves forward regardless. And that's when real transformation begins. If you ever feel lost, overwhelmed, or behind, just remember this. You don't need to take 10 steps at once. You just need to take one. And tomorrow, one more. And the next day, one more. The steps may be small, but their direction is powerful. The mountain doesn't intimidate the one who looks only at their next step. So, let go of the pressure to change everything at once. You don't need to. All you need is 1%. Believe in that small step. Protect it. Nurture it. Honor it. Because one day, when you look back, you will realize that 1% every day made you unrecognizable, stronger, calmer, wiser, unstoppable. That's the secret. That's the power. That's the truth. 1% is not small, it's everything. When you begin to understand the true meaning of 1%, something inside you shifts. You stop chasing perfection and start embracing progress. You stop waiting for the right time and start using the time you already have. Because 1% is not about doing more. It's about doing better, a little better every single day. It's about being patient with yourself, consistent with your actions, and honest with your growth. We live in a world that constantly tells you that you need to do everything at once, that you need to hustle hard, chase more, achieve faster. But real mastery doesn't come from speed. It comes from rhythm. It comes from alignment between your body, your mind, and your spirit. The 1% philosophy is about learning to move in rhythm with life, to understand that small, steady movement forward is more powerful than explosive effort followed by burnout. You see, everyone can give 100% for one day, but very few can give 1% for 100 days. And that's the difference between those who change their lives and those who only talk about change. Because consistency always beats intensity. You can run fast for a short distance, but if you want to reach the mountain, you must learn to walk with patience. The 1% principle is not just about achievement, it's about awareness. It's about becoming aware of where your energy goes every day. You can't grow by 1% if your energy is scattered in every direction. So, the first step is clarity. Ask yourself, where am I placing my attention? Because wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. And wherever your energy flows, your growth follows. When you truly live this way, you begin to notice how many moments in your day are opportunities to grow. You realize that growth doesn't always mean working harder. Sometimes, growth means slowing down. Sometimes, it means listening instead of reacting. Sometimes, it means resting instead of forcing. The 1% mindset is not about perfection. It's about balance. It's about becoming the kind of person who learns from every experience, even the painful ones. Many people think they are stuck in life because they can't see big progress. But you're not stuck. You're simply not seeing the small progress that's already happening. The mind wants to see evidence before it believes. But the spirit knows that the invisible changes come first. Every time you choose to get up when it's hard, every time you choose gratitude when you could complain, every time you keep moving even when it feels slow, that's growth. Invisible, silent, but powerful growth. Let me tell you something from my own training. When I was practicing Kung Fu as a young disciple, I would repeat one movement, one strike, one stance, thousands of times. My legs burned, my arms ached, my breath became shallow. And I remember thinking, why must I do the same thing again and again? My master would look at me and say, because one day, the movement will disappear, and only you will remain. I didn't understand it then, but years later, I realized what he meant. Mastery is not about learning new things. It's about refining the small things until they become part of who you are. That's the essence of 1% growth. When you repeat a small action again and again, with awareness, it becomes effortless. Your body learns. Your mind adapts. Your spirit expands. And what once felt difficult becomes natural. That's why you must trust the process even when it's boring, even when it's slow, even when no one is watching. Because the process is where strength is born. Many people stop too early. They give up because they can't see the result. But imagine this: you are digging for water in the desert. You dig, and you see no sign of moisture. So you stop and start digging somewhere else. You never reach the water because you never go deep enough. But the person who stays in one place, who digs deeper little by little, they will find water. That's the 1% mindset. It's not about doing more things. It's about doing one thing deeply, consistently, until you see results. The modern world celebrates multitasking, but the mind that chases many things achieves little. Focus is the real strength. If you give 1% of your full attention to one meaningful direction every day, you will create results that look like miracles to others. Because most people never give their full attention to anything. They scatter it, waste it, dilute it. But when you concentrate energy, even a small amount, it becomes powerful enough to transform everything it touches. The 1% philosophy teaches you that small improvements are sacred. They are the bricks that build your foundation. Without small improvements, there is no greatness. Every master started as a beginner. Every warrior was once clumsy. Every wise person once made mistakes. You cannot skip this truth. You must honor the small beginnings, the awkward steps, the uncertain attempts, because that is where humility lives. And humility is the root of growth. When you understand that, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop asking, why am I not there yet? Because you realize the only person you need to be better than is who you were yesterday. That's what 1% means. It means you are competing only with your past self, not anyone else. And when you live this way, you begin to experience real peace. You begin to grow with joy instead of frustration. You will notice that when you grow, even 1%, your environment starts to respond differently. People start treating you differently. Not because they changed, but because your energy did. Growth is not just physical. It's vibrational. When you become more disciplined, you attract disciplined people. When you become more peaceful, you attract peaceful experiences. That's why 1% growth is so powerful. It doesn't just change your actions, it changes your frequency. Now, there's something important to understand. Your 1% doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Maybe your 1% today is waking up early. Maybe it's saying no to something that drains your energy. Maybe it's forgiving someone who hurt you. Maybe it's believing in yourself again after failure. Each of these is a 1% shift, small, quiet, but life-changing. You see, most people look at others and think they're lucky. But luck is just consistency dressed in silence. People don't see the small, daily improvements that compound into success. They don't see the early mornings, the sacrifices, the inner battles. But those small, invisible acts of discipline, those are the 1% that change lives. Let me ask you something. What would happen if, for 1 year, you gave just 1% more attention to your dreams? 1% more care to your body? 1% more patience to your relationships? 1% more courage to your fears? Can you imagine the version of you that would emerge? That version of you already exists. They're waiting for you to meet them. And every small step you take brings you closer. But you must be patient. The 1% rule requires trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust in time. Many people lose faith too soon. They plant a seed and dig it up every day to check if it's growing. But a seed needs darkness before it breaks the soil. Your growth, too, begins in the dark. Don't rush it. Respect it. Because every time you nurture your 1%, you are aligning yourself with something greater, with the law of compounding growth, with universal balance. Sometimes you will move fast, sometimes slow. Sometimes your 1% will feel effortless. Other times it will feel impossible. But it all counts. Every small effort counts. Even on days you feel like you're not improving, you are still learning resilience. You are still training your discipline. You are still becoming stronger than the day before. And one day, without realizing it, you'll wake up and notice how far you've come. You'll realize that what once felt hard is now easy. What once felt impossible is now natural. That's the quiet power of the 1% mindset. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need applause. It just works day by day, silently, faithfully. So remember, your power lies not in doing everything perfectly, but in doing something consistently. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. You just need to take one small step in the right direction every day. That 1% is the seed of transformation. Protect it, nurture it, and it will grow into a life that feels unstoppable. The world will tell you to chase results. I am telling you, chase refinement, because the results will follow. The world will tell you to go faster. I am telling you, go deeper, because depth is where meaning lives. 1%. That's all you need. Not more talent, not more luck. Just a little more discipline, a little more belief, a little more patience. Over time, that little becomes everything. That is the way of the master. That is the path of true growth. That is the secret hidden in plain sight. 1% is all you need. When you truly understand the meaning of 1%, you stop waiting for life to change and you start changing yourself. Because the truth is, transformation doesn't happen in one moment of brilliance. It happens in small, almost invisible moments of consistency. It happens in the way you breathe when you feel pressure, in the way you speak to yourself when you fail, in the way you choose to move forward when it would be easier to quit. 1% a day. That's all it takes to rewrite your story. I have met many people who tell me, "Master, I want to change my life, but I don't know where to start." And my answer is always the same. Start where you are, with what you have, and give 1% more than you did yesterday. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need motivation to be permanent. You just need commitment. Motivation comes and goes. Commitment stays. And when you live by the 1% rule, you learn to rely not on feelings, but on discipline. You see, the biggest reason people fail is not because they lack ability, it's because they stop too soon. They want results faster than they are willing to grow. But life does not reward impatience, it rewards persistence. The 1% philosophy is the antidote to impatience. It reminds you that slow growth is still growth, that small steps still move you forward, that even if you move 1 inch a day, one day you'll look back and see miles behind you. The world wants to convince you that success must look grand, loud, public, but real success often begins quietly within you. It begins when you decide to keep promises to yourself, when you say, "I will keep showing up no matter how long it takes." That one decision, repeated daily, creates momentum stronger than any external motivation. When I was younger, training in the temple, there were days when my body felt broken, days when I thought I couldn't go on. But each morning, when the bell rang at dawn, I got up. Not because I felt strong, but because I had made a commitment to my path. I told myself, just one more day. And that is what 1% truly means: one more day of trying, one more repetition, one more act of courage. Most people never realize how close they are to a breakthrough when they quit. The wall that stands between you and success often looks unbreakable, but it's usually paper thin. You hit it once and nothing happens. Twice and still nothing. 10 times and still nothing. But on the 100th try, it cracks. And people call it luck. But it wasn't luck, it was the 99 quiet days when you kept going without applause, without results, without proof. Those days built the strength that made the breakthrough possible. The 1% mindset is not glamorous. It doesn't give you instant results. It doesn't satisfy your ego. It humbles you. It teaches you patience, presence, and persistence. It forces you to face yourself, your excuses, your fears, your laziness, and choose growth anyway. That's what makes it powerful. It doesn't just build success. It builds character. You see, growth is not supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to stretch you. Just like muscles grow when they are challenged, your spirit grows when it is tested. Every time you push yourself just 1% beyond what's easy, you expand your capacity. You show your mind that you are stronger than your limits. And when you do that enough times, your limits begin to disappear. But here's the challenge: the world distracts you from this truth. It tells you to look for shortcuts, to find hacks, to chase instant gratification. But shortcuts only lead you in circles. The fastest path to mastery is still the same as it has always been: slow, steady, disciplined improvement. 1% every single day. If you do something for one day, it's an act. If you do it for 1 week, it's a habit. If you do it for 1 year, it becomes your identity. And identity is what creates transformation. The 1% mindset is about becoming the kind of person who doesn't stop at good enough. It's about becoming the person who shows up every day because they know their purpose is greater than their excuses. Think about your own life. What would happen if you gave 1% more effort in your relationships? If you listened 1% more carefully? If you loved 1% more deeply? What would happen if you gave 1% more focus to your goals? If you planned 1% better? If you trained 1% harder? Small things add up. You might not notice the change in a day or a week, but over time, everything changes. Because consistency compounds. It multiplies. And this is the beauty of 1%. It doesn't matter where you start. You can begin at 0 and still grow. You can fail yesterday and still improve today. You can fall 1,000 times and still rise 1% stronger each time. The past does not define you. Your daily effort does. The reason 1% works is because it makes progress achievable. You don't need to be extraordinary to move forward. You just need to do something small every day. You don't need to leap across mountains. Just take 1 step at a time. And trust that those steps will lead you where you need to go. But let me tell you something deeper. The 1% rule is not only about success in the outer world. It's also about peace in the inner world. It's about improving your state of mind. 1 thought at a time. Every time you choose calm over chaos, patience over anger, kindness over judgment, that's 1% spiritual growth. And over time, those small acts of awareness create deep transformation. You begin to live with more clarity, more presence, more compassion. Sometimes, people think discipline is harsh. They think it means forcing yourself, pushing yourself too hard. But true discipline is an act of love. It's saying, I care enough about my future to stay consistent today. The 1% rule is a gentle discipline. It doesn't demand perfection, it just asks for presence. It asks you to be awake, to be intentional, to take responsibility for your growth. And I want you to remember something very important. The path of 1% is not linear. Some days you will move forward. Some days you will fall back. Some days you will feel powerful. Other days you will feel tired. But every day you stay on the path counts, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days, because those are the days when your character is being built. You must stop measuring your progress by the results you can see and start measuring it by the effort you give. The results will come. They always do, but only if you don't stop. You see, every small act of effort is like a drop of water filling a cup. One drop looks like nothing. 10 drops look like nothing. But one day, the cup overflows. That's how success works. You don't see it building, but it's building. The 1% mindset is also about forgiveness. Because growth means failing often. You will make mistakes. You will fall short. But if you can forgive yourself and try again, you've already grown. Failure is not the opposite of progress. It's part of progress. You can't improve without learning. And you can't learn without failing. So stop being afraid of failure. Instead, be afraid of not trying. Be afraid of staying the same. Be afraid of living your life, never discovering what 1% of consistent effort could have done for you. Remember, every great master you admire was once just like you. Uncertain, inconsistent, human. The difference is that they didn't stop. They gave 1% when they didn't feel like it. They showed up when it didn't matter. They kept moving when no one was watching. That's why they became great. Not because they were different from you, but because they refused to give up when others did. So I ask you, what is your 1% today? What can you do right now, in this moment, to move closer to the person you want to become? Maybe it's changing one thought. Maybe it's taking one small action. Maybe it's believing that you can. It doesn't matter how small it seems. What matters is that you do it. Because small actions repeated daily will always outperform big actions done occasionally. 1% may not impress anyone today, but one day it will amaze everyone, because they will see your success and think it happened suddenly. But you will know it was built silently, patiently, one small step at a time. That's what I want you to understand. Life is not about big leaps. It's about small steps taken with big intention. You don't need to transform overnight. You just need to move slowly, steadily, consciously. 1%. Every day. Without stopping, without doubting, without giving up. Because one day, you will realize that 1% was never small. It was everything. It was the difference between who you were and who you've become. And that realization, that moment when you look back and see what your quiet consistency created, that is the moment you'll understand the true meaning of mastery. So, start today. Start small. Start now. And remember, 1% is all you need. When you finally understand the power of 1%, you stop comparing. You stop rushing. You stop doubting. You start living. Because the truth is, the difference between the life you have and the life you want is just 1% more courage, 1% more effort, 1% more faith each day. That's all it takes to change everything. Every great transformation begins quietly in a single moment of awareness. In that moment when you say to yourself, I can do better. I can be more. I will not stop. That's when the journey begins. You don't need to take 10 steps at once. You don't need to know the entire path. You only need to take one small step forward and keep doing that again and again and again. People often think that progress should be visible, loud, dramatic. But true progress is subtle. It happens when you refuse to let your old habits win. It happens when you get up one more time after falling. It happens when you forgive yourself instead of punishing yourself. It happens in silence, in persistence, in invisible acts of self-discipline. The power of 1% lies in its simplicity. It teaches you that greatness isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. It's not what you do once in a while that defines you. It's what you do every single day, especially when no one is watching. Let me tell you something I learned in the temple. One day, my master asked me to carry water from the river to the top of the hill using a wooden bucket with cracks. I thought it was pointless. Every trip I made, the water leaked out. By the time I reached the top, the bucket was almost empty. Frustrated, I said, "Master, this bucket is broken. It's useless." He smiled and said, "Look behind you." I turned and saw a trail of green plants growing along the path I had walked for weeks. The cracked bucket had watered the dry earth. What I thought was failure was creation. That is the 1% rule. You may not see your results immediately, but that doesn't mean you're not changing something within you, around you, beneath the surface. Every small action matters. Every repetition shapes you. Every effort plants a seed. You just can't see the forest growing yet. So stop judging your journey too soon. Stop thinking you are behind. You are exactly where you need to be. All that matters is that you keep giving 1%. Even when it hurts, even when no one believes in you, even when it feels like nothing is changing. Because something is. Every small effort is preparing you for a big moment. A moment that will only reveal itself to those who never stopped. When you give 1% each day, you begin to master patience. And patience is power, because patience teaches you to trust time, to trust effort, to trust yourself. It removes the noise of the world that tells you to hurry. It silences the voice that says you're not enough. And, in that silence, you begin to hear your true self. You realize that success is not about reaching faster, it's about enduring longer. It's about staying grounded when others give up. It's about keeping your focus steady, your emotions balanced, your energy aligned. And that can only happen when you value progress over perfection. The 1% rule is also about humility. It reminds you that you are a student forever. That no matter how much you know, there is always room to learn. That no matter how far you go, there is always a next step. And that humility, that willingness to keep growing, is what keeps your spirit alive. You see, most people are not defeated by failure. They are defeated by the illusion of not enough. They believe that if they don't achieve something fast, they have failed. But speed is not the goal. Direction is. If you are moving in the right direction, even slowly, you are still winning. The destination ever will. Sometimes 1% growth looks like persistence. Other times, it looks like rest. Sometimes it means pushing harder. Sometimes it means letting go. The point is not to do more, but to stay conscious, to know what your growth demands today. Because 1% is not a number, it's awareness. It's choosing progress over comfort. Every single day. Let me remind you, you are not in competition with anyone. Your journey is unique. Your timing is divine. The mountain you are climbing may be invisible to others, but that does not make it smaller. So, stop comparing your pace to someone else's race. Stop measuring your worth through someone else's lens. Just be consistent with your 1%. and life will take care of the rest. In the temple, when we trained, we didn't count how many punches we threw. We counted how many days we showed up, because mastery doesn't come from intensity. It comes from continuity. One day becomes a week becomes a year becomes a life of mastery. That's what 1% is really about: devotion. Not to results, but to the process. Devotion means showing up because it's who you are, not because you expect applause. It means working in silence, trusting that your effort will echo in time. And when you live with that devotion, you begin to see how everything is connected. The body, the mind, the spirit, they all respond to small, steady effort. Train your body 1% daily, it grows strong. Train your mind 1% daily, it grows still. Train your soul 1% daily, it grows light. When you embody the 1% rule, you begin to move differently through life. You stop rushing. You start noticing. You start breathing deeper, speaking kinder, walking slower. You begin to live in alignment, not urgency. You begin to feel grateful for small steps, small wins, small lessons, because you realize that every one of them is sacred. And then one day, something extraordinary happens. You look back and realize that the person you have become is unrecognizable to who you once were. Not because of one big decision, but because of 1,000 small ones. Every 1% compounded into strength, wisdom, and peace. This is why 1% is powerful. Because it honors time. It honors patience. It honors the journey. And most importantly, it honors who you are becoming. But remember, the 1% rule only works if you do. The world is full of people who know what to do, but never do it. Knowledge doesn't change your life, action does. So don't wait for the right moment. Don't wait to feel ready. The right moment is now. The readiness is within you. Take the first step, then take another. Keep moving. If you want to change your life, change one small thing today. Wake up 10 minutes earlier. Read one page of a book. Meditate for 1 minute. Say one kind word. Do one push-up. Take one deep breath before reacting. Moments may seem small, but they are the foundation of transformation. Because success is built in private long before it's celebrated in public. Peace is built in silence long before it's seen by others. Strength is built in repetition long before it's recognized by the world. You will not always get validation for your effort. You do it because each 1% is a promise you keep to yourself. And every time you keep that promise, you rebuild trust in yourself. So I ask you, can you give 1% more today? Not perfection, not comparison. Just 1%. Can you give 1% more effort when you're tired? 1% more patience when you're angry? 1% more belief when you're afraid? That's all it takes. And when you do that enough times, life will start to bend in your favor. Because the universe responds to consistency. It rewards persistence. It amplifies what you commit to. You don't need luck. You need alignment. You don't need massive action. You need steady action. 1% might not look like much today, but it's everything tomorrow. Because 1% every day doesn't just add up, it multiplies. It becomes a force that reshapes your destiny. So never underestimate what you are building in silence. Never underestimate the power of one more repetition, one more sunrise, one more act of faith. Because one day, when you least expect it, all those small efforts will collide into something magnificent. And people will look at you and say, "How did they do it?" And you'll smile because you'll know. You'll know it wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It wasn't sudden. It was 1% again and again and again. So today, make yourself a promise. No matter what happens, no matter how far you have to go, You will give 1% more. You will show up. You will stay patient. You will keep going. Because 1% a day is not just a habit, it's a way of life. It's how you build strength, peace, purpose, and mastery. And when you finally reach your mountain, when you stand there looking back at the long road behind you, you'll understand something profound, that greatness was never built in leaps, but in inches. So take your inch today. Take your 1%. That's all you need. Because 1%, given every day with heart, will always be enough to change your world.